Hello everyone, I'm Javier Cifuentes-Faura from the University of Murcia in Spain. It is an honor to participate in this conference as a keynote speaker. Thank you very much to the members of the organization for inviting me. We will talk about governance, corruption and laws with a lecture entitled Political Corruption in Turkey, Government Analysis, Laws and Economic Policies. On February 6, in 2023, a major earthquake with epicenter in southwestern Turkey caused a large number of deaths and injuries, becoming one of the worst catastrophes in recent years. This high death toll could have been reduced if construction safety standards and the use of appropriate materials had been complied with. There are more than 18,000 collapsed buildings in Turkey, including some of those that had been classified as high-rise buildings and were supposed to have been brought up at the latest anti-seismic safety standards. Turkey is a country constantly peppered with corruption cases. The study of corruption is multidisciplinary, being a moral and cultural issue, and a complex phenomenon with very diverse effects. Corruption can manifest itself in many ways, for example, through the falsification of public awards, extortion of high officials, or influence peddling. A widely validated definition in works of public sector corruption is the one offered by Transparency International, which defines corruption as the abuse of public power for private benefit. The construction sector is one of the most corrupt, and where fraudulent acts such as bribery, money laundering, pit rigging, or clientelism are more likely to occur. The recent earthquake of 2023, which destroyed many buildings, has highlighted the continued presence of corruption in the Turkish public administration, showing the magnitude of the existing challenges in a country where corruption cases were already a cause for concern. Good construction can withstand the vast majority of earthquakes. However, poor construction is unlikely to do so. Some contractors responsible for much of the construction in recent years have been accused of engaging in corruption practices. Several construction company owners have been arrested and arrest warrants have been issued against several construction officials for alleged safety violations and irregularities. The Turkish government is implicated in the construction process carried out in recent years. The constructions could not have been carried out without the so-called amnesties. For example, building permits and licenses issued by the Turkish state, which facilitated uncontrolled growth that allowed rulers and businessmen to corruptly benefit. Construction amnesties had been granted to several of the buildings that were damaged in the 2023 earthquake, despite the fact that this regulation aimed to enhance regulation in the construction industry. Their execution has been ineffective, as seen by the prevalence of corruption and the lack of oversight about law compliance. The aim of this work, after introducing the problem of corruption in Turkey and the nexus between corruption and earthquakes, is to detect the existing legal and institutional mechanisms related to corruption in Turkey, and their implementation and enforcement problems, and then to analyze the evolution of different indicators of corruption, and to highlight the existing problem in the country. Turkey is a highly seismic country. The last major seismic disaster in the country was in 1999, when more than 17,000 people died. In the aftermath of this earthquake, the malfunctioning of the government, the lack of transparency and responsiveness of state institutions, and corruption were blamed. Still, with the last earthquake in mind, elections for the Turkish presidency were held in 2003, when the current Turkish president, Recep Erdogan, came to power. Among his main promises were to end existing corruption and achieve economic growth in the country. During all these years, Erdogan's government has completely transformed the country, carrying out major infrastructure and construction projects that have given the country a huge economic boost. Legislative and institutional reforms pertaining to construction, real estate, municipal governance, and housing finance were enacted starting in 2004. Reforms included giving municipalities more authority to carry out urban renewal initiatives, forming alliances with private businesses, and selling publicly owned property and assets to private developers. In 2007, new construction standards were adopted, with the aim of earthquake-proofing new buildings. Since 2018, when more steel beams and columns were needed to lessen the impact of earthquakes, the restrictions have been even stricter. By the same year, existing buildings that had broken the restriction were granted amnesty by the government, provided they paid a share. The governing body in charge of enforcing building laws has admitted, as part of that amnesty program, that by 2023, over half of all development in Turkey, about 13 million flats, did not satisfy acceptable requirements. Non-compliance with building codes by unscrupulous builders and developers, poor quality construction by skimping on steel reinforcements, and the use of inappropriate mixes to save cement cut costs and increase profits. And inadequate performance and oversight by the public administration has fostered a real estate boom that helped fuel economic growth. Over the years, construction has become the country's engine of economic growth, with housing being built in areas prone to earthquakes because of their location on tectonic plates. The construction sector has benefited from the amnesties offered by the government. For a fee paid to the government, these amnesties provided permits for all structures that had been illegally built or modified in Turkey. The government argued that these amnesties provide homeowners with the legal means to hook up their homes to municipal infrastructure, but in fact promoted the construction of unsafe and unregulated housing. Much of Turkey's building stock is in breach of regulation, making the amnesties a source of revenue for the state. The government collected more than $3 billion in property taxes and registration fees from the amnesties from more than 10 million people who applied for them. Urban renewal has done little to make housing earthquake resistant. Many building safety inspections have been privatized, prioritizing profit over expertise. In Turkey, the fight against corruption and bribery is regulated by the Penal Code, the Misconduct Law, the Bribery and Corruption Law, and the regulation of the principle of ethical behavior of the public officials and application procedures and essentials. The main legislation regulating bribery and corruption is the Turkish Penal Code number 5237. Certain acts are classified as offenses linked to corruption under the Penal Code. These include acts like public officials abusing their authority or embezzling money, as well as private citizens and public officials working together to rig bids or accept bribes in order to obtain illicit advantages. Bribery, in theory, requires the involvement of at least one public official. Any individual elected, appointed, or otherwise selected to carry out a public function for a temporary, permanent, or specially determined period of time is considered a public official, as described by Article 6 of the TCC. Bribery of public individual is defined the same way as bribery of public official. Both types of individuals are governed by the same rules. Those who commit bribery, both the recipient and the giver, shall be sentenced to 4 to 12 years imprisonment. Prosecutors' offices are solely competent and responsible for conducting criminal investigation and prosecution of bribery offences. In addition, prosecutor's office can rely on the support of the Ministry of Finance Financial Crimes Investigation Board (MASAC) to gather evidence. The Money Laundering Act requires that any party who has any information or suspicious that a transaction or attempted transaction is being conducted illegally must inform MASAC. MASAC periodically reports information on the reporting of suspicious transactions to ensure that all parties involved in the process have a common understanding and approach to the prevention of money laundering, and to assist them in identifying suspicious transactions. Article 29 of the Civil Servants Code states that it is prohibited for civil servants to solicit gifts directly or through an intermediary, to accept gifts in order to obtain any advantage, even when they are not performing their duties, or to solicit or accept a monetary loan from the beneficiaries of public services. The law on political parties in Turkey imposes stringent regulation on donations to political parties. Political parties are not permitted to accept financial or in-kind contributions from foreign governments, international organizations, or natural or legal individuals who do not hold Turkish citizenship. Article 38 of the Turkish Constitution makes it clear that criminal responsibility is personal and that one cannot be held criminally responsible for the acts of another person. Only real persons can commit crimes and receive criminal sanctions. In Turkey, legal persons cannot be held criminally liable. In the event that a real person commits an offense on behalf of or for the benefit of a legal person, it is the real person who is held personally liable. Under Turkish law, legal persons are still subject to specific security measures. Representatives and managers can be held liable in the context of their action in the exercise of their function on behalf of the legal person. Turkey has all the formal legal institution mechanisms to combat corruption, but there are problems in their implementation, which are highlighted in the following section empirically through the analysis of various corruption-related indicators such as the Corruption Perception Index, the Rule of Law Index, or the Global Governance Indicators, in order to give more robustness to the results of this work. Corruption is a widespread and ongoing phenomenon in Turkey. Over the years, the Turkish country has been involved in several cases of corruption, mainly related to the real estate sector. The latest Corruption Perception Index, published by Transparency International, highlights the corruption problems in Turkey. The CPI is an annual development indicator that gives countries a score from 0 to 100, where 0 means the existence of a lot of corruption, and 100 the total absence of corruption. In the last published 2022 report, Turkey scored 36 points, ranking 101 out of 180 countries surveyed. In 2013, it reached its best position, 33, with a total of 100 points. Since then, Turkey has been on a downward trend, with worsening corruption scores. President Erdogan came to power in Turkey in 2003. During the first part of his term, the CPI rose from 31 points in 2003 to 49 points in 2012, showing that he was succeeding in improving the perception of corruption, one of the goals for which he had been elected president. From 2012 onwards, the country's CPI began to decline, ranking 101 in 2022 with 36 points. Throughout this period, Turkey was characterized by a rapid boom in the construction sectors. Allegations of corruption are continuous and the awarding of contracts in large public sector infrastructure projects has become more frequent in recent years. Corruption can also be measured using the IDEA Global State of Democracy Index. It evaluates participation, accountability, and transparency. The degree of corruption decreases as the indicator's value rises. In Turkey, this indicator has been decreasing since 2009, reaching its lowest value in 2017 with a score of 0.37. Similar conclusions can be drawn from the VDIM index on political corruption. This indicator takes values between 0 and 1, and the closer to 1 the greater the corruption. The figure shows the clear upward trend, reaching its highest values in recent years, indicating a worsening of corruption. On the other hand, the World Bank calculates global governance indicators. The higher the value, the better the governance. It also provides this information in percentile rank terms, ranking from 0 lowest to 100 highest. These indicators are based on the opinions of a large number of businesses, citizens, and experts. Focusing on the political corruption indicator, a value close to 0 indicates low control of political corruption, while a value of 100 indicates full control of corruption. For Turkey, the lowest value of the indicator, 37.92, is attained in 2002, the year previous to the election of Erdogan. The situation improves, reaching its highest values in 2012. Since then, there has been a decrease in the indicator of 34%, showing the worsening of corruption over the years. The rule of law index are also along these lines. The indicator of assessed corruption in government considers three forms of corruption: bribery, undue influence of public or private interests, and embezzlement of public funds. This index ranges from 0 to 1, with 0 being very corrupt and 1 being non-corruption. The data for Turkey show a progressive decline over the entire period, from 0.55 in 2012 to 0.45 in 2022. So a number of urgent policies must be implemented to address corruption in Turkey. Adoption of open data is required to reduce fraud and increase accountability and openness. As of now, Turkey has not ratified the Open Data Charter, which stipulates that data must be available, comparable, timely, full, open by default, and valuable for enhancing citizen involvement and government, as well as inclusive growth and innovation. Digitizing information will make management transparent and available to the public. This would lower levels of corruption and increase administrative efficiency. Citizens should have complete access to public information in Turkey. Accountability and transparency are two prerequisites for putting a stop to corruption. It is important to create a system of internal and external auditing in Turkey that monitors all activities carried out by public bodies. In this way, extortion by officials in exchange for approvals and permits could be eliminated. An independent body should be set up to prevent corruption and prosecute illegal practices. The depoliticization of constitutional bodies should be promoted, and the excessive and unbalanced power of political parties in relation to society and citizens should be diminished in Turkey. Masak should continuously publish suspicious transactions for different types of sectors. And now we go with the main conclusion of this study. In 2003, The current Turkish president Erdogan came to power. Among his main promises were to end corruption and to make the country grow. Erdogan's goal was also to fight the corruption that existed previously, especially after the 1999 earthquake. During Erdogan's tenure, the country has grown with the implementation of large infrastructure projects. Legislative and institutional changes pertaining to real estate and construction were implemented started in 2004. This arrangement favored a small growth of the president's close allies in the construction industry, as many infrastructure projects were awarded without sufficient regulatory scrutiny or tendering. Urban renewal has done little to make housing resistant to earthquakes and other disasters. The construction sector benefits from the amnesty offered by government. Over the years, construction has become the country's engine of economic growth, with housing being built without supervision and without the necessary earthquake resistance, as demonstrated by the 2023 earthquake. The problem of corruption has been a constant problem in Turkey. If we focus only on Erdogan's term in office, when analyzing the different corruption indicators, such as corruption perception indicators, index on impartial administration, VDM indicator, or World Bank's Global Governance Indicator, two distinct states have been clearly observed. In the first stage, until 2012, the perception of corruption declined, and the various corruption indicators improved. There was a decrease in the level of corruption in the country with the help of legal reforms and anti-corruption operations, one of President Erdogan's main promises after his rise to power. The perception of corruption initially improved, however, despite the numerous anti-corruption regulations introduced, it worsened, and this proved to be ineffective. From 2013 onwards, corruption levels worsened again, returning in recent years to levels similar to those of 20 years ago. This increase in corruption corresponds with fewer suspects arrested in connection with bribery and fewer operations planned against corrupt activities, while at the same time increasing the number of tenders for work and focusing exclusively on few business growth. The change in the perception of corruption was partly linked to the initial changes in building regulations, but over time they proved not to be sufficient. Turkey now needs to undertake an urgent reconstruction process. Research warns that corruption increases in disaster management. Therefore, appropriate policies must be put in place to stamp out corruption and, at the same time, work on the ethical culture around anti-corruption. An independent internal and external audit system should be set up to monitor all activities carried out by public bodies, as well as an ethics body with monitoring powers and the necessary staff and financial means to supervise political activities. Turkey should also invest in quality education to fight against corruption. Policymakers and their allied companies are the main beneficiaries of the current corruption practices derived from the construction sector in Turkey. An increasing number of international bodies are monitoring and auditing the activities carried out by governments to prevent fraud and corruption. These external audits should be added to the continuous measures put in place to combat the opposition on those who currently benefit from corruption, and to ensure the proper functioning of anti-corruption policies. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. You can see my email on the screen, so you can contact me if you have any doubt. Thank you.